Hi, good evening, everybody. This is a call to order for the Aspen City Council regular meeting for January 28th, 2025. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
I'm here tonight. With no scheduled public appearances, this brings us to citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for citizens to address council on items that are not scheduled for a public hearing. We do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes, please, to give everybody a fair and equal opportunity to be heard. Are there any members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Francis, come on up.
Mayor Tory, members of City Council, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
City Clerk, City Attorney, City Manager, hi. I've lived in Aspen 38 years. We used to do events for Aspen Film at the Wheeler Opera House as Green Cuisine. It was packed, it was crowded, Short Fest, Mountain Film. I was a business partner with Aspen Film as Green Cuisine Aspen, and we packed it in. Lots of people, lots of comments, directors, actors, everyone eating, having a good time. I think that the ISIS is a great venue for movies and a benefit to our community. We've got lots of connections with actors, Hollywood, LA, and I recently joined the Doc NYC organization. They did a thing with Daniel Shaw, a local filmmaker, about Billy Preston. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. But I'm thinking that we could preserve the ISIS, make it a very viable community center for activities, a great benefit to our community, and we need it. I don't know if we can, make it more viable by naming it Aspen ISIS or something like that, but there's an opportunity to show stuff like second-run movies, stuff like having a David Lynch week, or a Kevin Costner week, or William H. Macy, people who live here that are part of the movie-going community. And we could bring actors and directors in to speak. I think that would bring a lot of heads through the door. When you do second-run movies, you don't have to charge as much. And it might be very popular with Aspen as a community with all the connections we have. We could hook up with Canopy, which is a streaming service, with Pitkin County Library. So all that, I think, is really viable. And there's a nice concession stand downstairs with a Turbo Chef oven. So there could be all kinds of food going on, and there's beer taps. I think it's a great opportunity to get some heads through the door and support a nonprofit like Aspen Film. They're really awesome. And I still think we need a community forum like a cannabis consumption lounge at the Armory. You could get tuned up there and then walk over to the ISIS and get some popcorn and watch a movie. So with friends, we could do musical events. There's all kinds of opportunity there. And I was kind of miffed by, this idea of putting retail upstairs and having the little movie theaters downstairs. So that's my take on it, and hopefully we can get some action to keep the thing alive and well. Anybody see the Nickel Boys, or no, a complete unknown? It's great stuff. All right, that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Francis.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
See ya.
Thanks, Francis.
Other members of the public for public comment this evening?
Hello. My name is Barb Pitchford,
and I am here about the Armory. So I'm talking to you as a private citizen and do not represent the HPC, of which I'm a member. The comments tonight are about the Armory. The Armory is an iconic architectural structure in the Aspen core. I'm excited to see that the renovation is moving forward. However, I disagree with the proposed review pathway for the development that includes the HPC only as a recommending body and then only near the end of the architectural design process. It's inconceivable to me that this important historical project is to be considered without the Commission's ongoing review and input, like all other historic resources in our city must go through. I understand the city manager recommended the public project process for expediency, I'm not sure, instead of following the planned development pathway, which includes HPC's initial review, then reviewing with you, the council, then the final review. This seems most appropriate for such a significant project. Did the council do the expedient public project process with the renovation of the Wheeler, with the Jerome, with the Ute Bank, with the ISIS? I'm disappointed that the city of Aspen is not following its own process and historic preservation guidelines. It appears that this council chose expediency over preservation, a decision I strongly oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public for public comment tonight? Seeing none, bring it back to council table. This is an opportunity for council members' comments. Start with Bill.
Happy to go first. I'll be brief. Most people in the community are aware that we have an election, municipal election coming up in March. There's 3 seats on the council, the mayoral seat plus 2 council seats up for election. And then there's also a couple of ballot questions. I'll save my comments on those for another time, but I just wanted to encourage all community members to pay attention, to research candidates, to support candidates that they believe in, both financially and in terms of assisting them in their campaigns. Campaigning's not easy in this community. It's a compressed timeline. It's challenging, to say the least. And I think people that you believe in, who are willing to serve in this role, could use your support and would appreciate your support. So certainly if you're displeased with the way things have been going at this table, I encourage you to consider some new candidates. I encourage you to research, participate, and support candidates that you like. And I will report further on my thoughts on the ballot measures that will be on the March ballot later. Thanks.
John.
Yeah, I'm going to start with some news from Protect Our Winners. This is from the World Cup in Lillehammer, Norway, which happened last week. Let's see, Gretchen Powers, a Protect Our Winners Creative Alliance member, was quoted as saying, "There has been minimal natural snow to speak of. With too many days of high temperatures and rain for any natural snow to contribute to this venture, this is the unfortunate future of the sport, and the hours of labor that go into preparing a 3.3-ish kilometer loop are mind-boggling. FIS Cross Country is aware of this and clearly very concerned. Quote, climate change is confronting us with new threats which we are addressing with an adaptation strategy that aims to strike a balance between implementing as sustainable an option as possible without forgetting the importance of snow, in this case, recycled snow, for these local communities which benefit from the ski tracks far beyond the 2 days of competition. This is more than a logistical challenge, it's a warning sign. As winters grow warmer and early season snowfall decreases, the future of snow sports and the ecosystems, economies, and communities tied to them are on the line, and that's us. Some better news. Also last week, this came from Deutsche World News. Europe's transition to renewable energy comes at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump is pulling out of the Paris Agreement, but solar powered has surpassed coal as the European Union's largest energy source. And lastly, also, as I mentioned before, as promised, President Donald Trump began reversing the country's energy policies his first day in office with a spate of orders largely favoring oil, gas, and coal. But there is one renewable energy that did find favor, geothermal. Energy experts say that makes sense. Geothermal energy makes electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Many people working in the field came from the oil and gas industry, and they use much of the same technology for drilling wells. Trump strongly supports and gets support from the oil and gas industry, and there's bipartisan support in Congress for geothermal. Quote, the embrace of advanced geothermal under this new administration, I'd say, is not a giant surprise, said Alex Kania, a managing director at Marathon Capital. It's reliable, it's efficient, and frankly, their ties to the more conventional forms of energy production, I think, is probably not lost on some people. So, as Bill mentioned, there is an election coming up. I am a candidate for re-election, and my goal is and always has been to promote the environment because our community depends on the environment. Thank you.
Thanks, John. What's down here?
Oh, and there's 5 weeks till Election Day, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. My comments relate to the information memo of the Aspen Country and Bus Stop, and I thank you for the memo. It was interesting to learn about the safe access for residents using EOTC-funded money for a taxi shuttle service, but it also mentions that the bus stop doesn't have lighting or pedestrian crossing, and I guess my question is, can we talk about this at an EOTC meeting? And as the information comes out about the most recent incident, can we maybe come up with other potential solutions or make it known about this taxi service? Whoever.
Sam, happy to do outreach on the taxi service that's been an existing route for a number of years. I think most of the residents out there are aware of it, but we can certainly ensure that that's the case. As far as adding to the EOTC budget, I think that's the pleasure of council and the members representing us on the EOTC.
Well, not just budget, but just, you know, this memo doesn't like talk about necessary potential solutions. And that's what I really wanted to get at. And I know this incident has not been finalized, but I still would like it to not go by the wayside if there's something that we should be doing, like adding lighting or pedestrian crossing at that spot. So that's why I said, is it appropriate to add it to an EOTC meeting, or how should we proceed? Because letting this just go away doesn't really do much.
Yeah, I think staff believes EOTC is the best forum to continue the conversation. We attached, along with the info only, some EOTC minutes.
I saw,
yeah. Just about previous solutions discussed and potential solutions that might be implemented in that area.
Okay. Sarah, if you know, do I need to formally ask for this to be on the EOTC agenda, or?
The city council would need to make that the request, not individual councilors.
I'm supportive.
Me too.
All right. I just want it to be discussed, especially as we get more information on the incident that occurred and if something else needs to be done. If it is the taxi service, so be it, but I didn't know about that, but I just want to make sure it is known and do everything we can to prevent an incident like this from happening in the future. So,
Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
That's all.
Thanks, Sam. Board?
Yeah, in the last week, there've been a number of executive orders nationally that have been concerning and disturbing to me. In reflection, I came up with a couple of thoughts that aren't mine, but represent my feelings. The statement, "Society is judged by how it treats the most vulnerable," means that a society's morality and level of compassion can be measured by how well it cares for its most helpless members, like the poor, sick, elderly, and disabled. Essentially, a society that prioritizes the well-being of its vulnerable populations demonstrates a greater commitment to justice and humanity. And a poem by Mary Oliver. "We will be known as a culture that feared death and adored power, that tried to vanquish insecurity for the few and cared little for the penury of the many. We will be known as a culture that taught and rewarded the amassing of things, that spoke little, if at all, about the quality of life for people, other people, for dogs, for rivers. All the world, in our eyes, they will say, was a commodity. And they will say that the structure was held together politically, which it was. And they will say also that our politics were no more than an apparatus to accommodate the feelings of the heart, and that the heart in those days was small and hard and full of meanness.
Tori, I have one more thing that I forgot.
Sure, go right ahead.
If you don't mind. Thanks so much. Thanks, Sam, for triggering my memory on this, but we also got an info-only memo on the alley management program, and I wanted to see if everyone has had a chance to read that and digest that, and I would propose that we provide support to staff to budget for at least 2 of the most problematic alleys in town for the 2026 budget cycle, and get to work on design and construction of those, resolve those issues, use it as a bit of a trial program, pilot program, and see how it goes. I can sort of think of the 2 that I would pick. I know that staff mentioned there's some criteria that they have to evaluate, but given the number of complaints that we've received on 2 particular alleys, I think those would make the most sense to start with from my perspective.
I haven't had a chance to go through it. I think we received it today. I did actually meet with somebody talking about their alley in the West End today, so I was interested in getting to the info update and see how it jives with what they're talking about. The opportunities in here are from grading and graveling to paving, et cetera. So I'm not ready for that conversation yet because I haven't been through this, but I'm interested in the conversation.
I echo your feelings, Tori. I have not read the memo yet.
I did read the memo, and it sort of actually said something to Bill's effect of a targeted approach. So I think there should be more triage done on these alleyways. These are the simple things that government provides, and it's a nice, easy win.
Yeah, I'll know more when I look at this and when I follow up with my meeting today.
Well, okay, perhaps we can revisit this next meeting, but
Yeah.
again, I'm not suggesting a specific technique or approach to resolving the issues, but I just would like to get some money in next year's budget and start on a path of correcting the worst of the issues.
Do you know by address or by street which alleys you come to the top of your mind immediately?
Yeah, I believe the first one is between 7th and 6th, between Main and Hopkins is the first one, and the second one, I'm going to get this one wrong, I think, but I think it's between 8th and 7th, and Francis and Smuggler, perhaps, but I could be getting that one wrong, off by a block or 2 there.
Okay. Yeah,
That's the one that Cecil Hernandez has spoken about several times, the second one.
I met with him, walked a couple alleys just to look at the condition and stuff like that, so I'll follow up.
Great, perhaps we can discuss this again next meeting. Thank you so much.
Sure. A couple of words from me, thanks to comms. Some APSHA news. You have an opportunity to help shape APSHA's future at community forums. The public is invited to 2 community forums this month to provide input on the future of the Aspen-Pitkin County Housing Authority. Community members are asked to join APSHA staff in the Aspen Police Department Conference Room. This is on February 18th from 4 to 6, February 18th from 4 to 6, or the following day, February 19th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is an opportunity to provide feedback that will guide the agency's 5-year strategic plan. Also, the APSHA Essential Repairs Grant program is back. The Aspen-Picken County Housing Authority has launched the second year of grants for homeowners who need essential repairs that address health and safety issues. The grant program is possible because of funding from City Council and Picken County Commissioners. About $400,000 are available for these necessary repairs. The program is available to Category 1 through 4 homeowners for general repairs and to all income categories for emergency repairs exceeding $20,000. Grants are available up to $10,000 per unit with required owner match contributions based on income category requalification. Eligible repairs include but are not limited to furnace and water heater replacement, plumbing fixtures or fixes, roof repairs, and window replacement. Cosmetic upgrades and homeowners association responsibilities are not covered under the program. For more information, go to apsha.org. The Art Cart Derby returns for its second year this year. The Art Cart Alpine Rally returns for the second year on February 8th, coming up quickly, 5:30 to 6:30 at the Woe Nelly Sledding Hill at the Aspen Recreation Center. In its second year, the event invites participants of all ages to design and build creatively modified sleds, race them down the hill to win prizes. The event will also feature food trucks, hot chocolate, and music. Those interested in participating must register by February 1st. You have 2 days. To register, visit aspenspecialevents.com. We want to make you aware of some arts and culture news. Local artist work is being showcased. The city invites community members to attend an evening showcasing local artists at the Red Brick. On February 6th, the Aspen Cultural Vibrancy Fellows exhibition will showcase works from 12 local artists funded by the 2024 Aspen Cultural Vibrancy Fellowships, featuring a range of media, including visual arts, filmmaking, and music composition. Starts at 5 p.m. Again, that's on the 6th. For more information, go to redbrickaspen.com. And then, very exciting, the Wheeler Opera House is introducing Roaring Fork Rising, a dynamic new series aimed at showcasing local talent from the Roaring Fork Valley. Hosted in the Vault, that's the lobby on the Wheeler's second floor, this initiative invites artists from Aspen and Newcastle to perform and connect with the community through original live events. To find out more information, go to thewheeleroperahouse.com. And one more notice for you, ACRA seeks input on destination management plan. The Aspen Chamber of Commerce is seeking input from Aspen residents on its destination management plan, which balances tourism, protecting the environment, and quality of life for locals. A resident sentiment study was launched this week and will be open through mid-March. Please go to aspenchamber.org/survey if you'd like to get directly to that survey. With that, I don't see any agenda amendments this evening, and that brings us to city manager's comments tonight. Thank you. Board reports, opportunity for brief board reports. John?
Yes. Start with Nordic Council, January 15th. Sorry. I'm going to start with Nordic Council, which was January 15th. We approved new bylaws. Also changed term limits for officers. They're now 3 years, and you can serve 2 terms. At-large managers reduced from 9 to 7 years. We are also in the process of pursuing younger board members because that seems to be a good idea heading into the future. Nordic Council has also shifted to nighttime grooming, which has had great results. There's fewer people in the way during the night, and there's much better results because of air temperature. Snowmaking update, Nordic Council has engaged the city's water attorneys and have discovered that there are water sources available at both the high school, the proposed high school snowmaking site and the golf course snowmaking site for Nordic skiing. I also attended an APSHA meeting on January 15th. Do you want to do that one, or? Okay. It's a fairly short meeting, but we did go over the home repair program. Let's see, 42 out of 46 repairs were completed. $362,000 were allocated, and $310,000 was distributed. The average grant issued was for $7,577, and the average repair cost was $14,686. We voted for a new hearing officer, and Thomas Snyder, who now lives in Basalt, he's a Denver attorney, won the position of our new hearing officer. And there was a summary of the retirement focus group. This group was put together to see what the issues facing retirees in our housing program, what their needs are, what their concerns are, and what we found is that most residents realize that housing in Aspen is a privilege, and they are mostly appreciative of that, and that loss of community is a huge concern for them. I think that's the problem. If they leave here, where do they go, and how do they afford a home elsewhere? It's a really complicated problem. And then lastly, I attended a Board of Health meeting on January 16th. Board of Health adopted a new working agreement. The top 3 strategic plan goals were decided to be increased in community awareness. Number 2 is staff retention, and number 3, we're learning from COVID lessons, how to be more institutionalized and better prepared for the next pandemic, because there will be another one. We asked questions like, what is public health's role in an emergency such as a wildfire? We'll be talking about that as time goes on. And also preparing for the expected federal policy changes with the new national administration, discussing including abortion rights, immigration, related health issues, vaccination rates, and other things like that. Our respiratory illness season has likely peaked. We are still keeping a close eye on bird flu, H5N1 flu. The risk right now is low, but our vigilance is high. Next Board of Health meeting is April 17th. Thanks.
Thank you. Board report for me was this morning's ACRA meeting, the chamber. The presentations today were from Pitkin County, one on the housing initiative tax and kind of the scope of what the voters have passed, how it's planned to be initiated and distributed, but those plans are not done yet. And then just dovetailing off that was leveraging that housing tax to address homelessness. And right now the county has a concerted effort around engaging some consultants to address the homelessness throughout the valley and the county. On those fronts, and I know that council members have been extremely interested in homelessness and in our municipality as well as the greater county, and happy to report that there's been some great work that has been done there. And it continues on with this new focus from an outside consultant that is going to help us kind of close the last gap on some of the homelessness that we see in our area. To me, this is one of those issues that does not go away, but is something that you will perpetually be dealing with. And it sounds like the county is putting a great foot forward on this. That'll bring us to our consent calendar this evening. Our consent calendar consists of resolution number 3, 2025 Core Professional Services Contract. Resolution number 8, approving the renewal of the Aspen Saturday Market and Vending Agreement with the Aspen Farmers Market Group. Resolution number 9, contract for lease and operations of Iselin Courts. And resolution number 11, appointment of Ted Gardenswartz as Municipal Judge. Resolution number 12, appointment of Deputy Municipal Judges Don Nottingham and Monica Groom. And then the draft minutes of January 14th. Are there any items that council members wish to pull for more discussion? Bill?
3 and 9, please.
3 and 9, got it. Any others? I'm gonna pull resolution 11 just for a quick word. Let's go with resolution number 3. This is the Core Professional Services Contract.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Section 2, Building IQ, I think everyone knows where I stand on that one. Totally opposed to funding that effort, but I won't beat a dead horse on that one. But I did want to talk about Section 1, the foundational programming. As a bit of an experiment, I signed up on CoR's website to do a home energy assessment, and this was several months ago, and heard nothing at all back. Zero. No phone call, no email, no text message, nothing. I don't see the value that CoR would provide to our community under this proposal. I think $750,000 and is an egregious amount of money to ask for this. I think our REMP funds could be used for better energy offset programs that would have a direct result on our community, and I do not support this whatsoever.
Thank you. I look over at Ben. Do you have any comments towards what Bill was saying there? I think the real gist there is that is this the best expenditure and utilization of these funds? I believe these funds are earmarked for, they are REMP funds, so I believe they're earmarked for in some delineation like this, but what Bill is suggesting is that they could maybe be utilized better for our community. Would you like to comment on that, or would somebody from CoR perhaps want to address that?
I have some high-level comments, and then I turn it over to our friends at CoR and within our climate action team. I think there's two pools of dollars here and two separate services here. I think the CoR services are aligned with the kinds of things that CoR has done for city residents and for Pickens County residents for a long time, related to grants and energy audits of their homes and businesses. And of the $2 amounts, that's the biggest dollar amount. The second pool is a number that we discussed fairly significantly during budget season, related to the Building IQ program specifically. And one of the things that's been very important for staff, and I think for us going into the community and placing expectations on building owners, is to provide a very high level of service in getting the data and understanding what's happening on one building to the next, and providing the services so that the building owners don't have to. And that's really the focus of that second pool of dollars. In terms of Councilmember Guth's particular experience with the request of the program, that's contrary to what I understand. We get all kinds of very positive comments about the program and the kinds of things that people are able to do with the services and grants that the program has to offer. So I will sort of allow sort of other comments towards that topic, but high level, these are conversations that we had during budget season, and this is the contract carrying out those budget requests that were previously approved.
Thanks.
Sure. First and foremost, I'd just say my apologies that you did not hear something back. That is atypical from what we hear from folks. We have a dedicated concierge team. What I would say is this has been a longstanding partnership with the city, and certainly in this situation, if it was several months ago, I hope you or anyone would feel confident to reach out to CoR. It's a pretty accessible office, and our team, including myself, would follow up on that to understand if there was some breakdown in communication. But we do log all of our calls. We log our response to those calls. So I am concerned to hear that you didn't get a response to that, because we work pretty hard in partnership with almost 20 other counties to make sure that that data is shared and we know how we're responding to different requests for support. So happy to follow up, and we will certainly look into it.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I just want to proclaim my belief in CoR and what it does. Been doing a great job for 40 years. This building IQ data is critical to knowing how much energy is being used so we can learn how to use that energy more wisely. Thanks, CoR.
Sam, and then Ward?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could speak about the Building IQ program and more or less like next steps, because how long is benchmarking going to go on for, and do you have any ideas of what comes afterwards?
Sure, I can speak to that. So benchmarking, the first benchmark you make of a building, that happens once, but then you continually include your data over time so you can see trends. And what's helpful about that is then with a full wraparound service that CoA provides building owners, they're able to see how things change over time and help them with improvements as they're needed on a voluntary basis. So that's how benchmarking continues. It's really kind of a guide and a way to provide support using data to drive decision-making for a building owner. For after benchmarking, this council directed us to develop a building performance standard, which is a way to kind of reduce emissions from buildings over time with targets, and that's in development with stakeholders.
Yeah,
Can I jump in,
sure.
if you don't mind?
No.
So I just heard two things that really concern me. One, I heard the term voluntary, which is contrary to what I've heard before, because I've heard both voluntary and mandated changes to buildings being implemented on property owners. Is that correct?
Right
I've seen
now-
that in writing where the staff
Right now,
has suggested that.
there are voluntary changes. If
Okay,
you
but-
want to work with CoA to improve something in your building after you've benchmarked, you're welcome to do so.
Okay, but I've read multiple instances of communication from staff saying that there are eventually going to be mandated requirements for implementing energy efficiency improvements.
That would be a decision at the council table.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that that's the direction that things seem to be going in, and that concerns me gravely. Secondly, it just seems like what I heard, it means we're going to continue funding year after year, millions and millions of dollars to continue benchmarking to see trends in energy usage for privately owned buildings. Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The trends are fairly obvious. It gets cold in the winter, we use more energy to heat buildings. It gets warm in the summer, we use more energy to cool buildings. We want to improve insulation, we insulate walls and ceilings and basement foundation walls. We want to upgrade the thermal envelope, we upgrade windows. We want to improve heating device efficiency, we buy newer equipment. It just doesn't seem like rocket science to me, and it seems like we're spending a lot of money in the wrong place. Rather than using that money to give directly to efforts that will change the energy usage, we're spending money on studying it, and I just don't think it needs the study. I think it's irresponsible. And Sam, thank you for allowing me to interject there. I appreciate it.
Well, and with that, I just wanted to ask, like, do you have some building IQ wins that you can share as far as, I think it's very helpful to think about these examples as far as you benchmarked a building and you put in a new heat pump or new windows and whatnot, and how it has, you can show improvement from this program.
I can speak to a little bit of that, and then you can add on if there's any specific examples. But as of last year, so not even including the projects they're already working on with building owners, they had distributed $110,000 of grants and rebates to building IQ owners. And the reason that's exciting is because the building owners knew about the improvements they could make by working with CoA through benchmarking. So the benchmarking helps them identify an issue or a next step and then make a data-backed decision and then apply for a grant or a rebate and work with CoA to kind of advise and figure out the next steps for their building. So that's very exciting and a big win. And we anticipate that will continue over time as more buildings get ready to want to make a voluntary improvement by having time to digest their data and understanding what they want to do next with their buildings.
Are you able to show tangible numbers as to the reduction in like greenhouse gas emissions or use of energy from like these efforts? Just to like, once again, show very tangibly that this is having a positive impact?
I mean, so annually we produce a report. That report came out, I believe it was presented and shared end of summer. So every year we re-up our report out on what is happening specifically to building IQ and the impact it's having. So buildings that have made the decision not only to go through the benchmarking process, but then what actions they've taken. And so we do give tangible numbers on that report. And then the core report that comes out overall for the organization, we also look at how many buildings, building owners have engaged, whether that's individual residential, APSHA housing partnerships that we've done, that we've combined and leveraged the investment in capital improvements that allow us to then say if it is about windows, insulation, those things that Mr. Guth spoke about, that those sorts of things are what we measure. And for each one of those, we look at those benchmarks based on national standards of what does a heat pump do to energy bills? What does it do to the efficiency of the operations? And how does it result in a measurable reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? So we can share those reports back out to you. We do produce an annual report on BIQ specifically, and then our overall impact with the organization around those foundational services, how those dollars translate.
Yeah, because twofold comment is it's good to have that tangible data to understand the support there. And then secondly, when I think about things like the environment and climate change, I think about how it only works if it economically works. And when you're going to do a bunch of benchmarking, business owners, buildings, they hate mandatory work, but they love when you help pay for it or pay for it. And I think when it comes to our environmental efforts, it's going to take a lot of just actual money to make it work, rather than trying to force things down people's throats and getting a lot of backlash. And I think that's something that the industry and politics has seen, that if you virtue signal and you force people to do certain things, you end up with the opposite effect. And I really want this program to work and to see the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and energy uses, because the financial aspect changed where it actually makes sense. Because it's gonna, and I know that's like basically the essence of CORE. You do the rebates, you do all those sort of things. But I just want you to know my philosophy on building IQ is it only works if you're not working towards mandates without bringing those dollars behind you to make it so easy for someone to make their place energy efficient.
Yeah, and I think, you know, going back to the comment about like the foundational services and that expense, the majority of those dollars are actually what we would consider pass-through dollars. So we have a relatively small staff that are spending on those dollars compared to what is going right back out to those building owners to say, how do we make this affordable for you to do that? So with BIQ, with the benchmarking, those $110,000 roughly are folks who saw, oh, there is a financial advantage, we're eligible to apply for those grants and rebates, and took advantage of that to make it possible to improve that. So the philosophy is in alignment there. We know that BIQ is looking at larger built structure, but it's consistent with our model for the last.
Yeah, if you make
yeah.
environmental friendliness economically feasible, we're going to get to our goals.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And then Ward?
Yeah, you're asking for $1.17 million. What is the total, what percentage of CORE's budget is that contribution from our REMP fund?
That for 2025 is, I would have to look, I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but I would say it's pushing 25% of the budget. As you all recall, and when we presented the budget proposal back when that was reviewed, a few years back, both the city and the county signaled that we have to look beyond REMP funds, and the board has worked pretty diligently, and the organization as a whole, to evolve. So we now have a pretty broad-based offering of fee-for-service contracts that we do for Basalt, Eagle County, Town of Snowmass Village, and the like. We also do private contracting for building owners who choose to get their benchmarking work done proactively, so they can contract with CORE. And then we've built a philanthropy arm to the organization. And so while the city of Aspen is still the largest contributor when you combine both foundational services and the fee-for-service work that we're doing tied to BIQ, we have expanded significantly the other funding sources and contributors to our base, and with a significant growth specifically to help Eagle County based on contract funding that they're providing as well.
Yeah, thank you, John. That is my dovetail, is that as far back as 2019, when I was on the CORE board, that there was direction from the board that CORE needs to find alternate sources of funding. Back in 2019. Mm-hmm. The city was about 50%. City and county combined were pretty much 100% of the funding. There were some other smaller sources. But I continue to issue the challenge to find other sources of funding. and I understand and went through the process of changing from, to fee for services, and a lot of this, this money is fees for services. Question on $110,000 went back to building owners. Of that $110,000, what were funds that were directly traceable to contributions from the city? Were those federal grants, state grants, were the money from the city? You know, $110,000 sounds nice to the owners, but I want to dig one layer deeper and find out of the contributions the city made, how many of those dollars went directly to building owners?
I'd have to look into it, but we can get back to you.
Okay.
Are you asking of the 110 in grants and rebates, how much went to building owners?
No, I understand that $110,000 went to building owners. And I'm trying to figure out if any of the money that came from our RIMP fund went directly to building owners. Or was it money that was found elsewhere from state or federal grant money?
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and, you know, Bill has brought this up a few times about mandates, and, Bill, you'll be, if it gets to wanting to mandate, you will be a voice at the table, assuming that's gonna come up in at least the next 2 years. And, what kind of mandates is totally under your control? Two of you sitting at this table, we know we'll be back in, for 2 years. And so when that discussion arises is when you will be a decision maker at that time. And I know where you'll stand on it. I believe in building IQ, I believe in this, but I do want to see a higher percentage. One more thing that I wanted to add is that the board bylaws changed so that all those cities contributing over 25% of the budget to CORE, we do not have a board member on CORE. That your bylaw changes so that electeds are not part of your board. I find somewhat objectionable. When we put that kind of funds into it of taxpayer dollars, I think that there should be a board member representing the city and a board member representing the county. Having said that, I do approve this.
Thank you, Ward. I don't have a whole bunch of comments here. The environmental leadership and work that we do in the city of Aspen, I think, is paramount to our success. One thing that binds us all and draws us all here is the incredible natural surroundings that we have. I think it is our responsibility to be good stewards of that. I think this is one step towards it. I agree with Ward's sentiment about the leadership that, Bill, you will be providing on this as it moves forward. I hope you were glad to see that the voluntary aspect of this was included in this memo. You know, my hope is that it works and operates in that manner. I really want it to be a fiscally responsible move for people, not just a feel-good move, right? So hopefully these funds are going to get to that place where we're going to really educate people on how they can create better sustainability, lower their bills, and do their part for the environment in Aspen as well. So I'll support as well. I know, Bill, you want to reserve your vote on this, so I'll go ahead and I'd like to make a motion for resolution number 3, series 2025. This is the CORE professional services contract.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to comments made by you and Ward and sort of summarize my thoughts is I'm not opposed to spending money, particularly from our REMP fund, to incentivize energy efficiency upgrades. I'm not against that at all. In fact, I think it's a good idea, and it's what that money is designed to be used for. What I am opposed to is spending millions of dollars on these studies and consultants and partnerships for things that seem to be very obvious to me. So if we created a funding pool to offset a certain, or to match funds to replace energy inefficient windows and boilers and roofing insulation and things like that, I'd be all for it all day long. It's so simple and obvious to me. I don't think that the money's being well spent with these studies and programs and consultants and analysis for something that's been studied on a national and international basis for a long time. Simple as that to me.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think the allocation here is $420,000, and this is a one-year contract, so it's possible that in 2026, this memo comes back looking a little bit different with not these monies allocated towards that, but more in line with what you're talking about. So I think one more year of this, and we're moving the program towards it. I'm seeing nodding heads, which is surprising to me. I might have said something that was correct. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please, for resolution number 3?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
No.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. The next one that we are pulling for discussion is number 9. This is the contract for lease and operations of Iselin Courts.
Hey, Desiree.
Hello.
2 questions on this. Number 1, is this model of leasing the courts out similar to what's happening at the golf course?
Correct. It's exactly what we do at the golf course
Great.
with the tennis courts.
Is there room for improvement in that arrangement? Are we implementing that room for improvement in this structure?
Yes, we've evaluated it and looked at how it can be how it can be structured. The programming can be still structured, but still have some community play to it. And so that is what we've done with these courts being a new amenity to the community.
Based on your sort of community feedback sourcing, is there a strong desire to have programming on these courts, or is the desire to have them available to reserve for private play all the time?
It's there. We do get a lot of questions about when can we do private lessons, when can we do leagues, when can we do tournaments, all of that. So this operator will be able to provide that, where staff can't.
So there is a desire for all of these different things. It's not just, I want to be able to go play with my friends.
Correct.
Whenever I want to. Okay. Great.
And different levels too. You know, I'm a new beginner, or I'm a 4, 5, whatever pickleball player. So they're all different levels looking for different play.
Great. And one of the alternatives, I think, is unstaffed totally, right? Maybe there's some kind of online sign-up system. Was that contemplated? Is that beneficial?
Yes.
Is that detrimental? I have no idea.
Yeah, with the amount of money that we spent on the capital for this project, we did, and we opened it up for about a month to the residents, and we started to see some issues with play and who could play and when they could play, and so we did figure out that we needed to have some structure up there. And we did used to have structure, play up there when open drop-ins and different things back before COVID. And so this model would be very similar to this.
Great. And then lastly, I saw in their proposal that they were talking about having a retail element, selling some pickleball equipment, which is fine. Do we have a structure for that? I don't think I want to see like a shed similar to what's happening by the golf course.
Yeah,
for their
so
little
right now they
office
would
retail, so-
currently have somewhat of a table with a tent set up that they would put out there if they want to have pickleballs and paddles available for purchase. Maybe some t-shirts, some socks, just very low hanging fruit for them, retail.
Yeah, I'm fine with the commercial aspect of it. I'm concerned about the aesthetic aspect of it, so I'd encourage that we have a provision in the lease that you have some sort of control over that to make sure that it's being done nicely. You know, the picnic table with a bunch of stuff on it doesn't sound good to me personally. You know, pinned up T-shirts on the chain link fence does not sound good to me. You know, I want this done nicely if we're going to tolerate it, so that would be my only request, but it sounds like you put a lot of thought into this.
We are working on a solution for that with the contractor, once the contract is approved and we move forward with that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into this, and it sounds like it'll be operated for the benefit of the community, so thanks.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask just a couple of questions. Obviously, I have a kind of personal interest in this stuff. I just want to make sure that there is open time for play, right? We don't want to privatize everything, and the public courts, tennis courts that are out there are available. They are a fee, and I'm hoping that these are not just rentable, but there is open court time, free court time.
So one of the things that the committee liked about this particular vendor was that she did some great structured programming, but then also had some of that community-free, first-come, first-served play that is not reserved. So more open for the community to play. So that is part of, and it is written into her contract for the community play. We call it, I think we call it community open play. Or open court times, so that's where it's open to the community. And so, just in her brief example, she has some on Saturdays, some afternoons, Saturdays, and a majority of Sunday open for that open time for community members to just be able to use the courts.
That's great. I don't know how the lease details were worked out, 10% up to 100,000, 15% gross over 100,000. I don't know how that was conceived. I'm not sure that that is the right or wrong. So I'm glad to see that this is a 3-year term that you're starting off with. So 3 years to kind of learn what's going on out there. But I do support your choice for the operator for this first 3-year term. I hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And then I wanted just a resolution number 11, because I wanted to bring my friend Ted up here to the table if he would. This is not a small deal. This is a big deal. Brooke Peterson was our municipal judge for 40.
I don't think I'm going to make that.
Look what you've signed up for.
I don't think I'm going to make that. I'm going to break all the actuarial charts.
So number one, I just wanted you to be visible for the public to know who the Muni judge is going forward. Secondly, I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations. In my comments previously, I pointed out your experience, your expression during our interview process about kind of your philosophy when it comes to judgeship or even the law in general, and how you see a fair application of that. And so I just wanted to invite you up and ask you if you had a word or two that you wanted to say hello to the Aspen community. For those people that don't know you, you will be our new municipal judge.
I appreciate that, Tori. I've known you a long time, and I respect all of you greatly for what you do. And having come to a few city council meetings now, have to go through this process, I think I respect you even more to the way you all actively listen, which I believe and I hope will be my temperament going forward as the judge, that I will actively listen and make sure that everybody who appears before me is given a fair shot and given a fair trial and given a fair hearing, and that we will uphold the law and do so in a way that is respectful to everyone who appears in front of me. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of your time that you all spent on this. And thank you very much for trusting me, and I will not let you down. I will do a good job, I promise.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second for the rest of the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ted.
This will bring us to first reading of ordinances. We have ordinance number 1, the annual fee in lieu schedule update. As Haley is coming up, I could use a motion to read.
I'll I'll make a motion to read ordinance 1, series of 2025, the annual fee in lieu schedule update.
Second.
A motion and a second for the discussion. Could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 1, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Ordinance number 1, series of 2025, an ordinance of the Aspen City Council amending City of Aspen Land Use Code Section 26.470.050, calculations to adopt a revised affordable housing mitigation fee in lieu rate schedule.
Hello, everyone. Haley Hart for the record. I have just a few slides to share, if that works for you all. Super, okay. You may recall that we kind of went through this process last year around the same time. So within Title 26, within our growth management chapter, we do have our employee housing fee in lieu payment schedule, which does state that every year, City Council may choose to update the fee in lieu schedule through the recent National Construction Cost Index, which is provided through the ENR, which is the Engineering News Record. And every 5 years within this chapter, it says that we shall evaluate and sort of do an analysis of the methodology that creates the fee in lieu. So before we go into this year's just annual update, I did want to just underline and make note that next year will be the 5-year mark. So staff is going to be looking at updating the methodology that brings us the fee in lieu schedule. So we'll probably look for contractors. My guess would be we'd first reach out to those who did the Phase 1 and Phase 2 study, which was part of the memo in the packet for today, to see if they recommend doing an update in a different methodology and just sort of taking a look at how we're doing the calculation. Right now, we're looking at the national construction cost index. So, you know, the consultants may think that, you know, we should switch gears. Maybe it's more appropriate to look at the Denver specific one, maybe sort of hone in specific to, you know, the sort of western slope or more regional context because it is sort of a national index at this point. So I did just want to sort of put that in front of you that next year we'll be sort of taking a full look at how we calculate fee in lieu. So from last January, which is when we updated the fee in lieu rate most recently, we have a 1.6 increase. And this translates roughly to a 7,000 increase across the board for the different categories. And again, this is just how we calculate our affordable housing mitigation for residential, commercial, lodging development. If you may recall, residential, we look at category 2, and then for other developments, we look at category 4. And this is how we just calculate our affordable housing mitigation. And we kind of went through this last year, and I'm happy to sort of dive into this again at second reading, but this is just sort of the graphic breakdown of how the fee in lieu is calculated. So again, we're looking at the construction costs, and we're looking also at what the price is to build an affordable housing unit per FTE. So staff recommends that we approve ordinance 1. Again, this is just increasing the fee in lieu structure from last January to this January, which results in a 1.6% increase. This is overall a 14.5% increase since we adopted the latest methodology of how we calculate that.
Do you mind going back one slide?
Sure.
2 questions. What's the less revenue per FTE mean?
So I believe that it is the cost between what it is to deliver the unit based on, and then what the cost is that we would then be putting in to build that unit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a fairly, this is okay, I think it came from the consultant work from 2021 study, but
did.
ultimately, we did a fairly complex analysis of the rental rates and purchase rates that are specified by APSHA across the categories to get the revenue that comes into a project, either over time through a rental, in a rental project, or those one-time sales for the maximum rental. So it basically takes the cost and pulls out the revenue that come into a project.
That's what I thought. Next question, construction costs per square foot. Is it more expensive to build in Aspen because of the robust industry that we have here? You know, it seems like in the last couple of years, perhaps, if you're trying to get a tradesman or service of any kind, it's difficult, number one. And supply and demand factors kind of make that impact pricing. So I'm just wondering, is what we're seeing as costs for development of affordable housing, is there an Aspen factor to that?
Yes, I think that there is, and I think that that's where one of the faults is in doing the national index, because there are certain costs to Aspen that are unique, but I think that's also where, you know, the model pulls in the actual hard costs that the city has spent to deliver units. So I think it sort of is made up a little bit in the model by pulling in the actual numbers, but I think that's where the fault in the model is, by pulling it at a national index level.
That question was a huge part of the 2021 study. We were able to pull numbers, pretty good numbers at the time, both from city projects, where we were the developer, and also private sector projects, both in terms of land and some construction costs that we were able to have volunteered from some of our private sector partners. I will say that it's really hard to pull that apart and to differentiate that kind of delta between Aspen and what the causes for what are obviously very high construction costs here, whether they be for market rate housing or for affordable. So I will say that diving into a response to that and getting numbers and trying to understand that, I think it would be a really important part of a 2026 study. But certainly I think that there is associations in the cost of affordable comparative to our sort of larger development pressures that we feel.
Yeah, and I think another thing that Ben and I've talked about is just, you know, this model was using data that was pre-COVID. I think that has just, you know, innately changed, like, the cost to build and cost to redevelop. So I do think that in looking for a new model, a new structure to calculate the fee in lieu, just overall, we would probably see very drastic outcome, maybe not drastic, but differing outcomes based on, like, what the model inputs are.
And that is next year's, the 5-year?
Correct.
Okay. That's great. I don't have a bunch of other input at this time because we'll be taking a deeper dive into this next year. It's just amazing to me that I hear from so many different corners of the community about making the fee in lieu, I'll call it a program, the fee in lieu program overall stronger, meaning higher numbers in order to support the credit program that we have, but also maybe not having it by right for some of those fractionals that we have and trying to sell fractionals on the credit side. I understand that there's a dearth in credits at this time. Again, we're going into this deeper next year, so I look forward to that. Thank you very much. Sam?
Yeah. I do look forward to talking about this more next year, but as far as just like thinking out loud goes, they're paying a fee in lieu to us to then develop affordable housing. Right now you have it listed at $400-something thousand for like one FTE. And we're building the lumberyard at over $1 million a unit. And I would say that math ain't mathing, as far as like this.
I will say it gets complicated pretty quick. That was per FTE. If you're talking a one-bedroom place, it's 1.75 FTEs. And so you take that 400,000+ multiply it by 1.75. And then we do have revenue coming back into that unit, either us, if we are the developer, or a developer partner with a revenue stream over time. So that's where math starts to math a little bit.
Okay, there you go.
But I do think this larger question that I think has been raised about whether or not the costs that we're identifying right now are reflective of the cost to build a unit and what those subsidies are within that program. So it's a fairly complex calculation. You know, when we did the study in 2021, it was pretty clear that to build a one-bedroom unit in the city of Aspen, whether private or public sector, was pushing $1 million, $1,100 a square foot. And so, you know, those numbers are going to go up in 26. We've got some good public sector numbers that I think we'll have available to us in 26. And we'll be working with some of our private sector friends to try to get some numbers from their projects.
Yeah, that last comment is the most important to me, that like, I'll approve this year, but I expect a significant increase next year, and I don't want it to come as the greatest sticker shock where it disrupts the market and screws everything up for everyone. But I expect this number to increase a ton next year.
We're cognizant of all of those variables.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Warden, then Sarah, then Bill.
Yeah, you could probably rewind my comments from last year the same time. Every 1.6% is increase. We're losing money every year. We're losing ground every year when we do fee in lieu for 1.6% increase. That I think that we should get away from the ENR. We should be looking regionally, and if not regionally, we can look at BG3 with 79 units. I mean, that's a cost of delivering. I think that we should be looking at that. And I question, it just, for me, it doesn't seem quite right that the fee in lieu is due before the building permit is pulled. It seems like it should be, I'm curious how the rest of council feels like this, that it should be paid before the CO. And I definitely think that we are losing ground at 1.6%. So next year, I'd like to have, if I can put my comments in now because I won't be around next year, that you focus more on what the local construction costs are, that I would look to for a lot higher increase than 1.6%, and to look locally for cost of delivery for workforce housing.
Ward, can I clarify, do you mean to pay the mitigation at CO in order for it to be most recently updated for the fee and lieu costs?
No, at the time that the permit is issued, that locks in, but that workforce housing mitigation, I'm curious how the rest of council feels like this, is that you're tying up, the developers tying up a lot of money to pay for mitigation before the unit is, the property is available for occupancy. So it seems to be more fair that it would be paid at, before the issuance of a CO instead of at a building permit.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Sarah, did you? Bill?
Thanks. A couple of things. One, Ward, I just want to make sure everyone understands that the development costs per foot are based on real delivery costs in Aspen. The ENR is only being used as an inflationary index from a year-to-year basis. So we're not using ENR's development costs per foot necessarily or at all.
But for an increase.
For an increase, yeah. And I think it'd be, I'm not sure that there's a better source of inflationary data from a year-to-year basis than ENR. So I think that's probably why we ended up with that. Number two, Sam, I totally appreciate the sentiment that it's not matching up, but I want everyone to be cognizant that there is an impact on free market housing values directly as we increase this. There's an equal and opposite reaction, maybe not equal, but there's an opposite reaction on free market housing. So the more we increase the mitigation cost, what it costs to deliver free market housing, the more free market housing increases in value and cost to develop, and further away it gets from sort of everyone. So I think it's important to be cognizant of that. Whether you care or not is a different story, but I think it's important to be cognizant of it. And then lastly, Ward, I think fundamentally I'd be fine with the mitigation being paid closer to CO. I think Haley mentioned something interesting, is should it be on the most recently calculated fee as opposed to the permit time fee? That may be a small incentive to help people complete their projects quicker, small. But we would have to do a very good job communicating to people that fee, what that fee is at a minimum, and that it will be due at CO, and that they shouldn't be surprised by it. I don't think we always do the best job at communicating sort of what your all-in permit costs and exactions are gonna be. And that'll be a big one that we don't want anyone to be caught by surprise with. So I support the notion with some process adjustment to make sure that everyone's well aware of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thought, that maybe we could sort of incorporate into the study and see if consultants have a sort of opinion on at what time is this sort of being mitigated throughout the permit process and building cycle.
Yeah, as a general principle, I would also just say, because I think it's central to a few topics that have been raised here, these are impact fees, and there are really clear best practices around impact fees and making sure that they're legally defensible over time, and and I will just say that in every conversation that we had with our last consultant team, and I would imagine, and if we find good folks, it'll be the same conversation now, is to be conservative with this, and to make sure that we're not, that we've got a defensible number as we move through this over time. And so, we had lots of conversation about whether to use a Denver number or a national number, and the consultants erred on conservative and said the national number, because it's spread out over a bunch of different markets across the U.S., is a much more conservative inflationary number. I mean, I know very clearly that Denver by itself has been a higher number than the national number has in the last couple of years, but it's, we're landing on a conservative, defensible approach on every variable within this calculation as we go forward, because it's got to be something that can stand up to a challenge.
This is first reading, so if there's any questions or information for second reading, ask them now, and then we can take a motion. John?
I just want to say thanks for all the thought you put into this. It's pretty obvious to me that you put a lot of work into it. So thanks for that. I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 1.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for ordinance number 1 on first reading. Any further discussion?
We don't need public comment on this, do we?
Nope.
No.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks. No public hearings this evening are scheduled, so that brings us to an action item. This is the appointment of the Election Commission. As was stated earlier this evening, there is a upcoming municipal election, March 4th. And you have a memo in your packet for the appointment of the Election Commission. Don't need any real presentation. The conversation here is that we have 2 returning applicants. One, Judge Nichols, and the other is David Hyman. Judge Nichols started on with us last year, and David has been doing it for about 13 years, I believe. We did post this as a listing to gauge other interest. We had one other applicant, a former city clerk, Linda Manning. So in your memo, it identifies that if we care to or need to have interviews for these appointments, that we would need to schedule that via special meeting. Or we do have the opportunity, there's no requirement for interviews to be conducted, so there is the opportunity for us to appoint 2 members to the Election Commission this evening. Would anybody like to proffer a bill?
Yeah, just Nicole was wondering if you could comment on how you came to those 2 recommendations and why you didn't select the third.
Oh, I had spoken with both of them a couple months ago, and they both just said that they would like to come back and be reappointed. And then it was just in the event kind of that I ran an ad if one of those could not fulfill their duty. So that was kind of where I was coming from in that.
Okay, great. Could you mind talking briefly about what the duties are and like do the qualifications of the individual matter and who's recommended by you?
They are here to basically follow our election rules that were put together by an election commission years ago. I think 2017 was the last time they were amended. But it's just to oversee what I'm doing and what the judges are doing to make sure the process is being followed correctly. And that goes for the LAT, which is our logic and accuracy test. That's performed with Dominion to test the equipment ahead of Election Day, so they're there for that. And then they're here on Election Day, too.
I would point out that the Election Commission is a statutorily required commission for a municipal election. The Election Commission does have authority to review certain complaints that can arise during the election, but their primary duty is to oversee the process. And like was stated, Mr. Hyman has been serving in this for quite some time, and Gail Nichols was a district court judge in this district for a number of years and is well respected in that regard.
They both did a great job in 2023, so that's just why I chose to go with them.
Thank you.
Ward?
I have a real high level of confidence in the 2 city members of the Election Commission, and would like to see those appointments confirmed.
Yeah, I appreciate Linda applying, but I don't need to fix what's not broken, so I don't need to interview them and can move forward with the 2 recommendations.
Okay. John?
Our current commission members seem highly qualified. I'm satisfied to let them continue to serve in their current capacity.
Okay. I would make a motion then to reappoint Gail Nichols and David Hyman to the Election Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Further discussion for me is, yeah, tons of respect for Linda Manning. I think she's great, but I do appreciate the work that Gail came on with us for last year, and David's 13 years of service, and they do a great job, so I do support them. Could we have a roll call vote for the motion, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
No.
Is that the last item?
Executive session. Nice try, though.
Mr. Mayor, staff is requesting that council go into executive session pursuant to CRS Section 246424A, purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, and sale of any real, personal, or other property interest. 4B, conferences with an attorney for the local public body, purposes of receiving legal advice. And E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. Specific items of discussion involve the following: discussion and direction in negotiating regarding contract negotiators, discussion and direction to negotiators regarding contract negotiations for the lumberyard project. And then the second item that had been noticed is council, is the staff prepared to move forward with that item, or do we need to do that? I know there was a question at one point.
Yes, during last night's discussion, it was not brought up as a possible joint work session topic. It was not discussed.
Okay, so the following item is a lease transfer and acquisition of real property or property interest by APCHA and contract negotiations and communication with council regarding such subjects due to market forces, negotiation strategies, and confidentiality demands of parties involved and necessitated by the subject to specific legal advice, which purpose further disclosure would be detriment to the city's strategic position. The exact properties cannot be disclosed. Council moves to go into executive session. Executive session will be recorded. The recording will be maintained by the clerk for a period of not less than 90 days. Also, as usual, we will convene the executive session and downstairs in the electric bathroom. We will not return to this room for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to
Go into executive
go into
session.
executive session.
Seconded.
Sounds about right. We have a motion and a second for the discussion. Could we have a roll call vote for going into executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Gu?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you very much. As always, we want to thank Grassroots TV. Appreciate you. Have a good evening, everybody.